Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com.
Oilerslive podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Oilers Live. Heavy Hockey at Night, part of Heavy Hockey at Night. My name is Michael, also known as Oilers Live. I'm here tonight with the original Pouzar to take our new listeners and our regulars on a little Halloween trip. Our live show's on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, now available on TuneIn. Apparently, you can talk to your devices at home and get TuneIn to get you on board and listening to us live. Special thanks to Dustin Nielsen, Matt Iwanek, Tom Gazzola, Lieutenant Eric, and the rest of the Edmonton Sports Talk crew. Your clear choice for Edmonton Sports. Wednesdays at 5 p.m. We're going to be moving to after this week. Thought I'd get that out of the way. So from now on, except on game days, we're going to take the Tuesday nights to a Wednesday drive home time, and then you can also get your fantasy hockey fix still on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Mountain with Devin, Bruce, Tyler, and John, the fantasy hockey hacks. And last but not least, before we get into some Oilers talk, a couple housekeeping items for you listeners tonight. There's a live chat that is on the YouTube channel. You can get that at youtube.ca/heavyhockey. Please give us a subscribe while you're there. And then all of this is brought to you by the Heavy Hockey Network, which you can find at heavyhockey.com. Let's make this one count tonight. Lots to talk about, as always, if you're an Oilers fan. And first off, happy Halloween, and welcome to this is your first time on the show.
It is. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for asking me on. I'm excited to be here.
I'm happy that of course, we've scheduled a couple times and didn't work out, whether it's my fault or whichever. Prior to doing the live streams, I think, I've followed you now for a number of years. Mm-hmm. I know you're a big Bakersfield Condors fan, so we're definitely going to talk some Condors.
Sure.
Which we talked off air about. And we'll talk some Heritage Classic, a number of different things. Take us at least through an hour. And if we get a little bit more in, that's great. And hopefully we get some interaction online today on the chat. Kirk already says, what? No Dash? And Dash is taking a night off. So you won't hear me fighting for airtime tonight.
You might be held hostage somewhere in my house, which was the only way I could get on the show. So.
That's right. Dash is somewhere in the back. If you see somebody running around, you know where he is. All right. Let's start with the Heritage Classic, because
that was a fun event, wasn't it?
Yeah. You know what? The event itself. So prior to McDavid announcing he would play, I'm not sure what anybody thought, right? Yeah. What was the you're on the ground, so to speak. You're in oil country, and
kind of. I'm in Calgary, but
in Calgary.
Well, I think Stauffer tried to excite the entire oil country when he kept saying day after day, well, they said he might be out for 1 week to 2 weeks, and they sent that at 5 or 4:45 1 week before the Heritage Classic. So I don't think anybody actually knew, but when he kind of practiced fully a couple of days before, I think the excitement.
How fast does this guy heal?
Yeah,
right. That 1 to 2 weeks ends up being 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I was actually, for me personally, I thought that McDavid was kind of battling something even before he left that game through those first 5 games. Not that he's not spectacular. He was still well over a point a game, but I thought he was struggling in a few areas, and I'm not sure if the oblique or the hip or whatever it happens to be was an aggravation of something that I think, just speculation, he was dealing with before, but I think it gave him time to fully heal. At least for me in those first 5 games, like he was doing some peculiar things like turning over the puck consistently in the offensive zone in the middle of the ice. And how many times do you recall him, gaining separation in the neutral zone and going on those rushes backing off the defense? It was rare. Usually that's 3 to 5 times a game, and that's what we saw this past Sunday night. It seemed like he was back to normal to me.
It was definitely a different game for him, 100%, and I think a lot of us felt the same way. Something must have been wrong, or maybe battling I thought maybe a little bit more simpler, like battling the flu or something like that. As we know, it's that season. Mm-hmm. But he definitely, I mean, you're right. Turning over the puck in the offensive zone is not something you typically see of him. Just little things that made him seem mortal for for an instant. And only McDavid scores a point a game when he's firing at 70%.
The one concern I still have is he's not shooting. And so that's why I thought maybe it was some sort of hand, wrist, arm. He's, maybe he's decided I scored 64 last year. I'm going to go back. I want to have this year. Or maybe I'm just making up in my head, catastrophizing, as that's what other fans like to do at the first sign of anything that goes bad.
Yeah, he. Well, and that might be it too, right? I mean, sometimes when you got a guy like McDavid or even a Draisaitl and they're not scoring 2-3 points a game, you automatically go to the default is they must be injured, right? Yeah. It just and the season really hasn't started the way obviously anybody expected it would, but there's been a lot of surprises this season. I think to start. What was your thought though on the game itself?
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this a little bit offline, which is, you get a game like this where the Oilers, looked good, everything looked good, but then you got to sort of sit back and think, well, wait a second, this is against Calgary, right? I was watching the Toronto LA game tonight. And
LA was dominating.
LA was dominating, but the effort the Oilers, put in place against Calgary might have been equal to the teams that I saw play in the LA Toronto game.
Yeah, like if you want to go to the game itself, like it couldn't have started off much better. The Oilers just came out flying, and it was McDavid's back, and maybe that gave everybody a boost, but everybody was playing with pace in that first period. And Woody was kind of rolling as much as he ever does. His 3.5 lines, and they were coming in waves. And really, at 5-on-5, it was like that pretty much the entire game. The only reason it was close was the Oilers kept taking penalties, and it's tough to really argue against any of those 4 calls in the first period. I'm not going to get on the refs. It wasn't bad, but it's pretty odd when one team literally has the puck almost the entire game at 5-on-5. And not that those 4 penalties weren't penalties, but I'm pretty sure Calgary wasn't defending absolutely clean as they're running around their own zone for almost the entire time. It just usually you take here's a hook or a stick or something. But I was quite enthused, and I even thought the penalty kill was fantastic. I know they were Calgary ended up with 2 power play goals, but that first penalty kill, that 5-on-3 that was over a minute long, Calgary didn't even get a single clean look. They killed that off, and then they go down and score the beautiful 2-on-1 goal. And then the other 5-on-3 for almost a minute and a half, they scored with what, like 1 second left?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. In fact, they weren't even going to call it a power play at one, or I think they questioned whether it was even during the power play is what I'm going to say.
And even the other power play goal, the Greer power play goal, you don't hear that very often, but that was with 1 second left after they killed it. And it was just Ekholm, kind of being a little flat-footed or not aware, and it looked like Boris Mironov from 2002 coming down in slow motion right past Ekholm on But, I'm quite enthused, but, got to take a step back and remember, the previous game against the Rangers, they were not even involved really. And the game against the Wild was so high event, but they deserved to lose that one. And, it was Calgary, and man, they're awful.
So and I haven't gone back to watch the first period again, but I felt like during the first period of the game, the Oilers went back to a man-on-man D.
Yeah. Like I consume a lot of post-game content. So, I've listened to Matt Cassian talk about it. I've listened to Shreddy talk about it and all those guys. And I'm not sure if it was the defensive zone structure. Matt Cassian thinks that they didn't change anything. For me, it's the neutral zone. Like they weren't defending that much in their own zone. So, it's tough to tell exactly, at least for me, what they're playing. They seem to be a bit more aggressive, but when they're more aggressive in the neutral zone, and every time the other team gets the puck, in this case Calgary, they're being more aggressive. It doesn't give them time to get speed through the neutral zone and cross the blue line and then get possession. So there was like John Shannon sent that tweet ahead. The Oilers are going to change their structure for this game, and I'm not a smart enough structures guy to see.
Yeah, I missed that.
I also think that this whole man-on-man versus zone is so overblown. Up until the Vegas series, did anybody ever talk about what type of defensive system they were playing? Was that a general, fan conversation? Rarely. Some people like Bruce Kurlock and, that analyze that type of stuff, maybe. But now all of a sudden, because Vegas beat us with our zone defense and Darnell Nurse went out to the blue line once, now that's all we talk about. I really
that's the biggest challenge I have. I mean, if we'll get into that, but maybe we're getting into it a little bit early. I keep arguing this, like why change something that I didn't feel was really broken?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to lose a series in your life. It's, the thing is about Oilers fans and anybody that, watches the Oilers is you think if you don't win the cup, it's complete failure. There are 32 teams in this league. Like it's not.
And they're all good teams.
Yeah, and they're all great. They're all great teams, right? Like
give or take San Jose, they're all good.
Yeah, and so I mean, winning the cup is
hard.
Bloody hard, and
that's why it's a party machine.
Yeah, and well,
that's a Ken Holland comment. I didn't come up with that one. So.
No. But I mean, you look at like, given the fact that, not all the club that wins the, President's Cup doesn't always win the Stanley Cup, tells you exactly what all that matters. And the Oilers were in that series against Vegas, right? Like to say that Vegas came out and absolutely trashed them. No, that didn't happen that way. So the challenge that I have is like, what's going on that, we needed to change the defensive structure. And so, in fact, what did we finish? 18-2-1 in the
I think it was 14-0. That's what I was going to go back to. Like, as you're alluding to, was it broken? Like we ended the season 14-0-1. I think it was. They hadn't lost in regulation, and it was 15 games. Maybe it was 17-1, but 15 to 18 games. And I do acknowledge that down the stretch, it was a fairly easy schedule. There was a lot of San Jose's and Anaheims, but that also means that they're playing the tougher teams earlier in the year. So, like it evens up through the year. But, after the Ekholm trade, I think they were something around, and I have to go back and look at the numbers. I haven't for a while, but at 5-on-5, something like 7th in the league in goals against. They were still leaking goals on the penalty kill. That was a problem all year long. But at 5-on-5, they weren't that bad. So maybe it wasn't broken. A couple things got exploited. Cassidy did a good job. Darnell Nurse maybe chased out a little too high that one time, and I think it was Fogle that didn't check down. And one time Yamamoto got left in front of the net with one of the bigger players, and they scored. So there's a couple highly visible, but did Woodcroft and Manson overcorrect? Like, did they all of a sudden think, oh, this doesn't work against these great teams? They're going to exploit us. Maybe you need to execute better.
Yeah, well, there's lots of people who think that Vegas Oilers series was the Stanley Cup series.
Vegas thinks
Yeah.
that, pretty much said that
Yeah,
themselves. You know.
So, there's a comment here. It's Bob's your uncle says the zone or man versus man both effective when understood, interpreted, and utilized properly. The changes Woodcroft made were knee jerk, and he dropped the ball. Now, the interesting thing that I'll say here is I've been thinking a lot about this is I wonder how this season would have went so far if we had lost the first game 3-2
As opposed to 8-1.
and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I felt like, and I'm always hesitant to get into this because I'm actually a big Woodcroft fan.
Mm-hmm.
But where I see his failings, and I've seen them in the past, not just this year, but in previous years, and we'll talk about line combos and all of that as we go tonight, are exactly that. Typically he can be. Every coach is reactive, but he can be a little overreactive on occasion. And in the case of losing a game 8-1, like it seemed like immediately he went back to Leon and Connor, and he hasn't left there. He's moved things around to what I would say would be the season's gone to gone to hell model, right?
Yep.
Like, we're trying everything else, that we can on game 2. Like he went to that in game 2, and he hasn't really switched from that, I'd say, because we've had the same result.
And to tell you the truth, on that note, like I was a bit worried about this going into the season because for at least a year now, if not longer, and I think it's gotten, I don't want to say worse, but this has been more and more over time, is Woody's penchant for shortening the bench and taking his bottom 2, 3, 4 players completely out of the game early and often has just increased and increased. And last year we actually had a very good, prominent and impactful bottom six. The team was I think it was 62 goals for and 50 against with McDavid and Dry off the ice. That's what we've been looking for since McDavid was drafted, and Leon started to get his start, and they'd always kill their minutes, whether they're together or apart, but then we give it all back and more, when they're off the ice. And last year, the bottom, like when they were off the ice, they were succeeding, they were helping, they were impacting the game and the goals positively, but still, any sign of adversity, you're down too early, either shorten the bench completely or load it up. And going into this season, I was one of the people that actually was saying, you know what, like our depth is depleted from last year. Everybody was talking about Connor Brown and replacing Yamamoto and that we're just better. But I'm like, well, Bukestad's gone, Yamamoto's gone, Costin's gone, and we've replaced them with Dylan Holloway and Adam Ernie. It was so this is a great day. Today might be the best day of the year for my wife because she no longer has to hear me complain about why Adam Ernie's on the team the day after day after day. But Woodcroft, he's got to find a way to deploy his entire 11 or 12 forwards, and even when things are running well or when they're not, having McDavid and Dry together, it just decreases his ability to do that.
Well, we talked about this on our last episode, Dash and I did, which was, when Woodcroft finally came to the Oilers, the commentary around the team was, hey, we finally get to play.
Mm-hmm. That was right? Derek Ryan, the famous quote.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was Derek Ryan. And I think that we've kind of gone back away from that again.
And to tell you the truth, it was overblown, I think, a little bit. Like it was right away because they started hot, right after Woody got there. But he's always been he was like that in Bakersfield as well. I watched a lot of the Condors. He, relied on his vets. He relied on the Malones and the Espositos and Cracknells when he was on the team, and Stanton on defense. Like he relied on those guys, and and the youngsters always had to earn their ice time. Colin Shock's kind of similar, but he's actually improved a lot. But Woody, he's people think he's the new age coach. I really think there's a lot of, Ken Holland type of assessment. Rely on those veterans. Like you have to play 200 games, or else you're making rookie mistakes. I'm like, the guys that have played 2, 3, 4, 500 games in our roster are making rookie mistakes night after night after night. Might as well play the kids and develop them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to play. I really feel like you have to play everybody. Like, I think if you got a guy that plays 6 minutes a night, right, and he's not scoring or he's not doing anything, you have to think about two things. He's playing 6 minutes a night, and every time he gets on the ice, he's cold.
Yep.
Yeah. Defensemen are the same way, right? If they're not engaged, it's harder for them to get out there and play well. Anybody who's played sport, whether it's at a high level or just your regular rec sport, like if you're not playing, it's not so easy to get in there and just be at your best every time you get out there. And so there's a fine line, because you've got two guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, and of course you want them out there as much as you can. But in certain instances, like when we look at, I think, Nurse's utilization, you get overutilized, and then there's other problems, right? And so that was the whole, benefit of having Ekholm come in and sort of save the end of the season last year. And I think, in fairness to both Nurse and Ekholm this year, Ekholm was hurt, and he's taken some time. I think he's looking better, other than that, one play. But guys will have a mistake from time to time, and I bet you he doesn't get caught like that again for the next couple of weeks.
And truth be told, you like Nurse, even though he's still playing quite a few minutes, because Ekholm's not quite up to where we thought he would be, or where he's likely going to be. Nurse has been fantastic this year. Like, I know there was a couple highly visible mistakes early when he joined the Rush as the fifth guy. Like, obviously, people remember that. But he's still playing all the top minutes, and he's killing it numbers wise. He makes the odd mistake, and people will point that out, but they won't point out the 4 pucks he tips and blocks, and he wins every battle on the boards and gets the puck out. So, and if you want to go further on that, and I know I'm kind of changing the topic and going off on a tangent, so it's Cody Ceci. People just keep, people got pretty demoralized with him last year, and I get it. He was slow. He was hurt, but he was slow, and he was not nearly as solid. And I think he struggled, and everybody struggled in the first game. And then people are like, no, Ceci still sucks. He's been solid as can be for most of this year. Like,
there's a couple times where I thought he was one of our best D.
Yeah, but he gets no credit. No credit.
No, in fact,
bring in Pesci.
In our heavy hockey group chat, there were a couple of folks that were getting down on CC one night, on the same night that I thought he was having one of the best games as an Oiler recently. So, you see what you see, but I'm kind of with you in terms of Darnell Nurse's play, and I've said this consistently over the last couple seasons, is when a guy plays as much as he plays, and everybody's out to get him, they notice all the mistakes he makes. But he's out there all the time, and so you've got to expect to see some.
And that's fine. Like, he makes mistakes, and when he makes them, you can talk about him, because he's going to. And he's not Victor Hedman. And, even though he makes the same amount of money, or give or take. But what bothers me is when it's confirmation bias. There's so many out there that they see the 9.25, although they like to say 9.5, even though it's 9.25, and he's overpaid. He's not a second pairing defenseman. No, he's not overpaid by $4 million. He's overpaid by whatever, $1 million, $1.5 million. So be it. It's not the end of the world. He's going to be the third person that touches the cup when we finally win it. But people look for the mistake. They see the one mistake, and then all over my Twitter or X feed is, bashing Darnell Nurse because he iced the puck. I'm like, well, what about the 7 plays he made, breaking up the cross-seam pass and the small little plays off the rush that he made before that? Nobody mentions that. But, he made a bad pass and they iced it. Darnell Nurse, $9.5 million.
Yeah. Too many people focus on the salary. Really. All right, let's get to, I put this up there. Reaper -1XXX said, what did you think of Dry as the 1C with 97 on his wing?
Well, those two can be dynamic, right? I know it's a bit of a joke saying that McDavid was the winger, Dry's playing center, but if it is an oblique or whatever it is, and it's not 100%, it's probably tough on the faceoffs. And Dry's the best faceoff man on the team, anyways. It's why he plays so much on the PK, because he takes most of the faceoffs these days. To tell you the truth, I don't think that they're nearly as dynamic when they play together at the beginning of a game as they are than when they're split up and they get loaded up situationally. Like when they're running their own lines and maybe the team's down 3-2 and you start the third period and they come out there for a shift, it creates energy. It changes, it can tilt the ice. But when they've been playing together all game and they're good and they have their shifts, but there's no spark there. It's just another shift when they're together, as opposed to something different. Oh, they're loaded up. Oh, there's an icing. Here comes.
I also find the other team gets into a cadence with them, right? Like
exactly.
It's a little bit easier to line match. If you got those two together all the time, right?
Yeah. And they're done, but they're so much fun to watch. Like when you have a team like Calgary couldn't handle them at all in the first period. And they had Fogle, I like Warren Fogle, but come on, they have a very, very complimentary player. A guy, he's fast, he digs pucks out and stuff, but he's not thinking on the same wavelength when they're dominating on the cycle. But they had one of those shifts last night. I think it was in the second, maybe it was early in the third, where they had like 2 or 3 line changes. And they never scored. I don't even think they got a really great chance out of it. But one of those great shifts, the crowd starts to clap because they've been in there for 2.5 minutes and they've changed 3 times and the Flames are exhausted. And it's all started with McDavid and Dry.
Well, and it's the challenge, and we'll go back to this over and over again, is it's still Calgary, right? Yeah. So we get excited. I still, maybe you could, I titled this on Twitter, like, we'll talk about who the puck wants and who the puck doesn't want today. Have you ever heard that chirp before?
I don't even really know what it means,
Not to mention, here's the guy that scored his first of the season.
Oh, but he's only minus 10 on the year now.
Yeah.
Only 5 more years at $7 million for that 33-year-old.
Oh man, I don't know. I love the fact that Trey Living signs those and then takes off.
It takes off, and did you hear the really good news out of Calgary today? The Flames. I think it was Eric Francis. Not that I want to necessarily drop Eric Francis. He reported that basically they've stopped all contract talks with the UFAs, which I think is very, very disappointing news, to tell you the truth. Because I think there was sounding like Hanifin was getting close to signing and Lindholm was interested, but now they're taking a pause from all that. And nothing would make me happier. It would be for Calgary just to re-sign Tanev and Zadorov and Hanifin and Lindholm for $9.5 million and stay in mediocrity forever. Finish 1 point out of the playoffs every season.
Well, that explains some of the other other things I heard. I didn't hear about the stopping the contract talk, but now a lot of it makes sense. What I was reading today, I thought, whoa, hey, Oilers broke them again.
Again, yeah.
I love it.
But we'll see. To go back to the point is, it was one game, and they play, and they still have problems. They had discipline problems. They
2 games in a row.
2 games in a row, and that was the only reason that let Calgary hang around. And when it was 3-2, I was nervous. I'm like, they're dominating this game, and it's 3-2, and we've seen this story a few times this year. It was kind of a very nervous feeling, and it didn't need to be. So they need to. They talk about using it as a spark plug. What's the next game? Was it Dallas? Dallas, good deep team. That's the type of team that can give them trouble. I got full confidence the Oilers are gonna come out like they should, but I don't know.
They'll have them on the second night of a back-to-back. Who knows what that means? But you know what? This is a good chance to take a break. When we get back, we'll talk about the Bakersfield Condors. We'll get maybe an update. I know you watched them a lot.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the upcoming game against Dallas. Talk about Sam Gagner And then what we didn't talk about was depth scoring. So let's make sure we touch
What's
on that. Yeah. This is Oilers Live from the Heavy Hockey Network. Proud to be a friend of Edmonton Sports Talk. We'll be right back. And Devin, Bruce, and the rest of the fantasy